This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Dads from the Crypt podcast.
You wrote that the world doesn't need a savior, but every day I hear people crying for one.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. I'm Alan Katz. Gil will be with us shortly. But first,
like us. You'll be surprised how easy it is to like us once you begin.
And all you have to do is push the like button. Better yet, subscribe. That way you can stay informed of all the very cool things that Gil and I are working on beyond this podcast, like Are You Afraid?, the brand new streaming horror black comedy series we're about to take out to the TV marketplace.
Flesh-eating ghouls. For a long time, we humans have been deeply afraid of vampires and zombies.
Sin for paramedics.
Fair enough, vampires and zombies are scary. But neither vampires nor zombies
Are real.
Flesh-eating ghouls, on the other hand, are real. They've been living in our shadow for thousands of years, hunting us, feasting on us, treating us
Like food.
But some ghouls are tired of living in the shadow of their food. Those ghouls have decided it's time to leave the shadow.
And put us in our place where we belong.
On the menu,
It's an eat or be eaten world.
Flavored by fear, filled with the monster we
should have been afraid of all along.
flesh-eating ghoul. Are you afraid?
Better be.
Coming soon.
Working with iconic characters like the Crypt Keeper is a very particular creative challenge. They're not just characters, they're franchises. Whole universes filled with potential, both to storytell and to monetize the storytelling. When you accept the gig of working with franchises as iconic and as multi-generationally beloved as Superman, the gig comes with almost more responsibilities than benefits. There's a reason people keep making and remaking the same superhero movies. Audiences won't let certain characters go. A character like Superman fills something essential inside of us. So whoever we hire to play Superman, people are going to take that choice very personally. Casting, it's pretty close to everything. You get the casting right, well, you're going to be a rich genius. Get it wrong, you'll kill the whole franchise dead, and they'll never let you forget it. But casting is tricky. It's so subjective. And there's more than one way to play a conflicted superhero. Take Batman. There's a lot of latitude. He's an odd, dark character to begin with. But you could cast Adam West, or Michael Keaton, or George Clooney, or Christian Bale, or Robert Pattinson. Those are all very different actors who each interpreted Batman very differently. That's because you can play Batman as ironic or earnest or emotionally tormented or emotionally bereft. It all works. Superman, on the other hand, no such luxury.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Superman! Yes, it's Superman!
He epitomizes the straight and narrow. He's a Boy Scout's Boy Scout, instantly and incredibly likable, selfless, sensitive, virile without being all alpha dog about it. Whereas Batman's outfit is a costume he puts on, Superman's costume is Clark Kent. The character isn't Clark Kent pretending to be Superman, he's Superman pretending to be Clark Kent. So you're not casting Clark, you're casting Superman. That makes casting really tricky because, as I've said here a few times, in film and TV, we really don't hire actors to act. We hire them to be who they are, as honestly as they possibly can. If they act, the camera will see it and it'll end up on the cutting room floor. That's why the best film actors are the ones who excel at being emotionally honest, at being who they are on cue, for however many takes it takes. In the case of Superman, that means you have to hire someone who's a lot like Superman, frankly. If he tries to act like Superman, it won't work. Guys like Christopher Reeve and Brandon Routh, they really don't act the part of Superman. In a lot of surprising ways, they just are it. So the answer to the question, how do you cast Superman, is, well, you find someone Superman. You find someone like Brandon. Quick side note. This interview originally was 2 interviews. We've cut them both together into one everything you need to know about Brandon Routh super interview.
Usually, if it's a story that's my own, I am not a great storyteller of my own stories in the past.
You've started off the conversation with an interesting, okay, let's go off to the side. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, why do you suppose that
I'm
is?
all about the side.
Yeah. Hey, I'm happy to go down an interesting pathway.
I don't want to stop your thought, but does my hair look crazy? I can put on I have a beanie.
You look great.
It's so long. I need to get it cut. I don't even know what to do. Okay.
I stopped dealing with hair a long time ago. So
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm the worst person to ask.
Yeah, you look, Brandon. You look great. But then again, this is coming from 2 guys who much hair.
I didn't realize that.
You're asking the wrong room, man. So,
thank you.
Why do you think it is you have problems telling your own stories?
This is a lovely question at 11:11. I think it's because, it's multifactorial. Many things are, but I think one reason is because I've told myself internally and unconsciously, people don't care and they don't want to hear it. So that kind of thing.
That's a very, it's so interesting that you say
so
that.
Self-defeatist. So I'm defeating myself before I'm telling it. I'm like excusing myself before I'm telling the story.
All right. I'm glad I asked that question, and I'm glad you gave that answer, because as I was doing my research just to get to know you before we had this conversation, I watched a couple of.
You talked to my therapist?
Well, I didn't not talk, but there was some texting back and forth. But, that was off the record, of course. But I watched a couple of interviews you did with Michael Rosen.
Oh, yeah.
My biggest takeaway was that you and I have very similar stories.
Huh?
In that we were both on a particular career trajectory.
Yeah.
That suddenly veered wildly off course. And for you, it was Superman Returns and what happened afterwards. For me, it was the movie that Gil and I did called Bordello of Blood. And, really in the aftermath of Bordello and Blood, my career went a whole other direction. It just kind of crashed and burned for the better part of 2 decades. You did much better.
Sorry.
You did far better than I did. But really, there's that suddenly finding yourself in a wilderness you did not expect yourself to be in. And it's very disconcerting. And like I said, I suddenly felt such a
kinship,
yes,
connection,
absolutely. And so I thought from I understand something about you from the get-go, and like I said, it makes talking about it really. I'm not asking you questions as an outsider. I'm comparing notes with you.
Very good.
Let's start with life before Superman.
Oh yeah.
You 3 or 4 children. You grew up in Iowa. You're a distant relative of President Franklin Roosevelt.
I think the internet said that.
Yeah.
I've never heard news to me.
Because all right, if this is
other than
case,
somebody else quoting Wikipedia or something.
Who the hell wrote your Wikipedia entry? Now, really, this is as much a part of our public relations as anything else, because it's self-writing. If you didn't put that there, who the fuck did?
I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. And that's not that far back. So I think I would like my family would know if we were. So, if we are, it's like, so are you guys? Did you know we're all related to each other because we all live on Earth and we're all human beings?
Well, indeed. You've never done 23andMe?
Well, yeah, but it doesn't say that. I've not gotten any.
You would think that would be something, because it's not too distantly related. Wow, Wikipedia.
Somebody way back, like a ruler, a French guy, or somebody, like 900, 1100 AD. There's some mention in my 23andMe. One thing that I know with some certainty or some interest or confirmation is that the name Routh is by a gentleman who's in Texas. There's a lot of Ralphs in Texas, I guess. A gentleman like 30 years ago did a whole like genealogy thing and traced the name Routh all the way back to the town of Routh in England, and kind of like out, near Manchester,
near Wrexham.
Yes, William the Conqueror came over with the Normans. He was a Norman.
You did when you studied about him. They didn't say Uncle Willie to you, did they?
No, Uncle Willie. No,
it wasn't Uncle Willie.
See, because it wasn't Uncle Willie. Uncle
Guillaume.
Adopted like extra bonus uncle. William the Conqueror came over.
Are the Ralphs are the Ralphs in the Domesday Book?
Who?
In the Domesday Book, after William the Conqueror conquered England, he took stock of everything that was there. And he created a thing called the Domesday Book. And that was really taking stock of everyone and everything that was in England. And you might be able to.
I don't know. That's very interesting. I'm not aware of that. And when they conquered this part of England, he gave land to Sir something, Sir Bedivere, one of the Knights of the Round Table. No, Sir, I think it was an R, a name, one of his right-hand men, and it was the town of Ralph. It was already there. It's for like hard earth or hard dirt or something. Is Ralph something? Is the definition, I guess. And the people then, his land adopted the name Ralph.
I got you. Okay, I got you.
So that's where Ralph. I don't know if people were called Ralph there, or that he married into and extended the Ralph line. This commander.
But that's really cool. So probably if it comes from a town, it's in the Domesday Book.
Yeah,
I love history. So right off the bat, that just stuff like that blows me away. When we were shooting Crypt the last season in England, we got to work in locations we could only have dreamed of before. We shot one episode in a place called Dorney Court, which is owned by the man whose relative built it 600 years ago.
Wow.
It was so cold. I can't imagine it was like 600 years ago. This was with heat.
Oh, yeah.
And cold and damp. It was awful.
Oh.
But a great location. I mean, it looks cool. But I don't know. I find the fact that you can trace yourself back to this place. That's very cool.
Someday I'm going to go. Someday I'm going to go to the town of Ralph. Someday soon, I'm going to go and check it out. The Church of Ralph.
The FDR connection is bullshit. How about the Jason Momoa?
It took us somewhere, though. It took us somewhere. The FDR did take us somewhere.
Yeah. Well, hey, we wandered. We found our way back.
Right.
All right. So the FDR connection is bullshit. How about the Jason Momoa connection?
Yes, I am related to Jason Momoa. He is my half-brother.
Thank goodness.
The world should know. Half brothers on my dad's side.
That's so interesting.
So
how did you do that?
Wait, on my mom. Did I do that joke? Okay. There was a joke somewhere. I don't know if I couldn't do all the calculations as I was speaking, but there's a funny there somewhere. Jason is from the same town that I'm from in Norwalk, Iowa. That is true. We did grow up in the same town together, playing soccer for years and years and years on the same high school, team as well. And what was in the water that it produced two guys who ended up making superhero movies? Holy shit! Two completely opposite guys.
Yeah. I mean, you don't look the same.
No, we don't look the same, and we're not the same. I mean, we're not the same. We're not the same person.
No. Wouldn't cast you the same.
No, you wouldn't cast the same. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting thing. I don't know if there's a case study of this anywhere else because the population of Norwalk was 6 or 7,000 when I was growing up. Okay, I graduated a class of 156 kids, and Jason was a year ahead of me in school, but he's only a couple years older than I am. I wonder if anybody. Here's the question. I don't know if I wonder if anybody asks him, "Hey, Brandon Routh." He's become such a household name. It's astonishing. It's amazing. Jokes about him all the time on just TV shows like Non Sequiturs, the Jason Momoa joke. We weren't friends in high school. I didn't have any friends, for one. And I don't know if he had any either, because he was one kid looking like Jason Momoa in a town where everyone looked like me, and in a state where everyone looked like me. So he had it rough, and nobody understood what he was really going through. So we unfortunately didn't connect at that time until we were adults, and now we have. And
it's funny. I was going to ask you, why is it you didn't have any friends? You said you were, although you were a theater kid.
Yeah.
So you had friends in the theater.
I had friends in school.
Yeah.
I was social.
Yeah.
Goodness, I was social and had friends at school. I had outside of school, I had no friends.
Would you describe yourself as awkward?
To this day. I mean,
this
yeah,
is and this is why you don't think you have a story to tell, which is not the truth at all. But the whole reason we're having this conversation is because you have a terrific story to tell.
Yes, I was awkward. It was not to go into a whole bunch of my childhood, but I mean, you can't really write it any better or give a better comparison than to say I was Clark Kent. I very much like that character. Goody two shoes, which caught up with me when I was in 7th, 8th grade, as kids were experimenting and doing things that the parents wouldn't be happy about and might get in trouble for. I think naturally people realized I was going to be a buzzkill and maybe
you were that kid.
Tell on everybody, because I was the kid. I was the kid at the Boy Scout birthday party. It was a party for one of our Boy Scouts in a troop, and we're having fun. And we go in, and we're evening time. I think we're like 10, 11 years old.
And you said you were a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
A literal Boy Scout.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was on my way to be.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yes, I was a Boy Scout.
Okay.
And I was not a great Boy Scout, but and we got sleeping bags, and we're watching the movie. We go to, after the good party that we had, friends party, all the guys, and the movie is Top Gun. And right? Yes, that was the movie. And it's PG-13. But I'm 10 or 11. So I'm under my covers because I'm not supposed to be watching the PG-13 movie.
Oh, I knew kids like you. Oh man, I absolutely I know who you were. Oh my God, I know who you were.
One more story about that. It's because it's movies. Around the same age. I must have been younger, I think, because Back to the Future came out much earlier than I remember in theaters. It was like out in 87 or something. So this memory, I thought I was older in this memory. So it must have been, if it was 87, I must have been, maybe I was 8. At most I was 8. So I was 7 or 8, I guess. And we were going to the movies, and my sister, who was 2 years older, so she was 9 or 10, she's still not old enough. Man, went with my older brother, who's 11 years older, to see Back to the Future. They were seeing Back to the Future. I didn't get to see Back to the Future because Back to the Future was rated PG-13, So guess which movie I saw? Anybody else remember what movie was playing when Back to the Future came out? The movie I saw with, I think, my parents was Cocoon.
Oh,
Oh boy. Well,
And
okay.
Cocoon gave me nightmares from the pod opening for years. I was like, gee, Mom, Dad, save me.
But as you know yourself, Brandon, parenting is so hard.
Oh, yeah. I love my parents.
It's so
I say
hard to get it
because
right.
Because, I wouldn't be telling this fun story.
Indeed. Well, as we also all learn, our children are our parents' revenge upon us.
Yeah.
In particular ways, it's the payback we had coming to us. I know my son especially was, he argues the way that I argued. Ooh, boy. Yeah. And he's 24 now. He's really good. He's really good.
You can be proud of yourself then.
Well, thank you. And it sounds like you are filling the role as a very dedicated parent too. We'll get there. Parenting is a very important part of the human experience.
Absolutely.
I would say that parenting made me a better writer, without a doubt. Holy shit, not even close. Oh my God. Yeah. I learned so much being a parent that I did not know before about human beings.
The depth of humanity and caring, and it's the one way to really get you out of yourself, more than just a significant other, because it's not the same as and it doesn't have to. I don't know that it has to be your child. I mean, because we have these situations, but it's that thing that you are so invested it's a true connection. It's a true heart and soul connection to an individual that you don't find. It's hard to create that or allow that with other people, with children and with people that you care for in that way, that you are the caregiver for.
Nothing reveals your vulnerabilities in this world than having a child in your hands, holding them and suddenly realizing how vulnerable and yet how important this thing is. You feel so connected to everything. And not everyone has the same takeaways from this experience, alas, but hopefully, fortunately enough of us do that, we will hopefully get through this patch in time and remember how bonded we all really are. But there's our sermon for now. Where'd you go to college?
I'm a proud Hawkeye. As an English major. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write fantasy novels, basically. Was what was my career path. And then I was going to go into graphic design to pay the bills until I wrote my first blockbuster novel. Then maybe someday adapt it into screenplay, and maybe I'd become an actor. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, that's what people do, right?
But your whole approach was really practical.
I've always strongly felt like I don't always know where it's going.
But you always felt like
leading me more than I'm leading it. But
something out there that you had to head toward, whatever the fuck it was, wherever the fuck it was. I mean, you dropped out of college after 1 year and you went to.
Hard. I moved to Downey, California.
The point of the point of the exercise in moving from Iowa to Downey, which is not far from Los Angeles, was
to pursue acting. My great aunt and uncle Dan and Sue Brown were there on my mom's side and took good care of me when my kind of grandparents for a while, because they were my second great aunt, great uncle. Yeah, so second. They were my grandparents' age. I went out to try it out for 3 months was the idea.
Why 3 months?
I think 3 months because the idea was then maybe I was going to go to New York and try modeling. I was in Iowa. spring break happened in my freshman year. I went to a local modeling talent agency called Avant in Des Moines. That led to, hey, why didn't you go to this big thing called IMTA in New York, where people go and they meet agents and managers from acting and modeling. Long story short, I did that. That's where I met my first manager, and modeling agent and manager. Manager suggested I come out to LA, and then I did for 3 months. Went to New York for a couple weeks to try modeling. I didn't like that. Never wanted to do that really anyway, just to make some money, and I never did really. And then I went back to. I decided pretty early on into that 3 months I was going to stay in LA because I booked my first gig in like a month of being out there.
What was the first thing you booked?
It was a TGI Friday show. You know, it used to be on ABC. It was a show called Odd Man Out. Marky Post was the mom.
1 month, 1 month in, and you scored that?
I think it was 1 month in. Yeah. I said 5 words. I'm at the end of the show. It's a sitcom, right? I don't know if it's live studio. My first job's a live studio audience. Like that's probably the worst for most people. It's probably the worst first like acting gig you could have. But my only experience really in acting had been on stage. In doing comedy, the first play I ever did was Hide and Shriek, and it was just like a farce. Of Aesop's Fables kind of thing. I played like a hillbilly with a terrible Southern accent and a hat on the head, but I loved it. It was amazing, and hearing the roar of the crowd. That's the first spark of anything for me. But I loved the sitcom. I did it. I thrived, and I thought I was behind the stage, like after the show or as we're filming the show, going, "This is it. Like, I'm doing this. I'm sold. I'm not going back to Iowa."
There's nothing quite like learning that you can make people laugh in a live environment. That is super intoxicating. Yeah. That suddenly gets into your head, and then you begin scheming. Suddenly along comes Superman. There's a great scene in Kill Bill 2 where Bill, just before the final duel with Beatrice Kiddo, he talks about his theory about superheroes. He said Batman is actually Bruce Wayne. Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. When that character wakes up in the morning,
he's Peter Parker. He has to put on a costume to become Spider-Man. And it is in that characteristic Superman stands alone. Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When Superman wakes up in the morning, he's Superman.
And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak, he's unsure of himself, he's a coward.
Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
Quentin has thought long and hard about some things that a lot of us don't think long and hard about. What do you disagree with?
The last part, his critique that it's.
The Clark Kent is Superman's critique of the whole human race. That was Bill just ranting and raving before Beatrice kills him.
But the first part is, I was going to say I can't remember the words. They were great words that he wrote. What was the first part that?
He says about
Superman. This part
Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When he wakes up in the morning, he's Superman. Yeah. His alter ego is Clark.
Yeah, I would say my response to that is well, I don't get too big with things, but that's all our story. That's everyone's story.
But it's the universality that really gives it. Why the fuck do we keep coming back to this character?
Because he's one person who in a way is saying it's so. For me, what Superman is, he's an alien. Came from another place. He's a human. He is the same emotional, whatever. All that structure is the same as us, right? So he's just able to sit in his own skin because he has powers that show that he has these powers that show that his inner. That he has a great power, so he can have great power internally also. and it's okay to share that inner fortitude or compassion or empathy and all of the things, the wisdom that he has, because he can justify it with his physicality somehow.
Yeah,
we don't as human.
I really, absolutely. So, I mean, he's invincible, but not emotionally.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, he is vulnerable emotionally.
Yes.
And that's, you know, in spite of all the superpower, he's still, yes, there's kryptonite, but there's also that attachment to other living creatures.
Yeah.
I think that's really what made our movie so different than any other movie about Superman before or since.
What I wanted to bring to it, from all of my, you know, thinking and meditating at the time about Superman and what he was to me and to the world, rather than just a comic book hero.
Before they dragged you into this, Brandon, Warner Brothers spent over a decade in developing a plan to relaunch this incredibly valuable franchise. You know, I keep asking the question, why do we keep coming back to the same 3 or 4 superheroes? And it is because it's hard to beat them. They seem to encompass so much.
The archetype is strong.
Yeah, the Superman, Spider-Man, you know, the Peter Parker Spider-Man dynamic. Now, you know, I confess I'm not a superhero aficionado.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate, wow, how those universes were put together, and suddenly you have a Marvel verse and a DC verse, and it's been great for a lot of creative people that these worlds were able to expand. Warner Brothers, you know, certainly, you know, they were trying to recapture something of Dick Donner's Superman.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, they wanted to forget about, what was it Superman 3 that they wanted to forget about, or 4? I forget which one.
I mean, both, but mostly 3 more than 4. I don't know. I don't know.
At what point
the latter ones, yeah.
At what point did you join the process, Gil, in making Superman Returns?
Oh, pretty early on in that 10-year history.
Okay.
I was involved with Superman for about 4 years, I think.
Before shooting started.
Oh yeah, we had I think I had 3 or 4 directors.
What was that process like? Warner Brothers was
insane. I mean, I was finishing up Constantine, and while I was finishing up, I was on the set on the lot at Warner Brothers. I got notice saying, you need to go right away to see Alan Horn, who's the chairman of Warner Brothers. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, they're going to fire me. they're gonna just drop me. Why would they fire me? I only got 3 more weeks on Constantine. So I leave the set immediately. I go up to Alan Horn's office, and I'm like, you know, I go, Alan,
what'd I do?
You know, what am I doing here? And he goes, sit down. And he sits there and he goes, so listen, I think Robinoff was there as well. I think by then Lorenzo had left, and Robinoff might have been Lorenzo. And they look at me and they go, so we want to talk to you about your next movie. And I'm like, so you don't want to fire me? And they look at me and they go, fire you? Are you out of your mind? So I said, well, what's the next movie? And they have a script, and they turn it around and they push it to me on the other side of the table. And on it says Flyby. And I go, what's Flyby? And they go, you know, Flyby. And I go, no, I don't know Flyby. What's Flyby? And they go, Superman. And I go, Superman? Are you crazy? I'm not doing that. And I push the script back to them. And I go, you've been trying to make this for 7 years. This is what's going to happen. You're going to waste a year of my life. You're going to pay me well. At the end of the year, I'm going to be so pissed off because I didn't do anything. So I don't want to do this. I'm not doing it. And I left. I went back to the set. So the next day, I get a phone call, come back up to see Alan Horn. So we go up there, and he goes, how can we work this out so that it makes sense for you to do this. We really want, you're the guy to do this with us, blah, blah, blah. And I go, I don't know. I mean, I can't ask you to have final say in any of this because it's, your money, your studio, your property. But how do I get to the point where I'm not going to be upset when you say we're not making the movie because of whatever reason, the script, the actor, the location, whatever. And so we spent weeks talking about that and trying to figure out why and how I would feel comfortable doing that. And we sort of came up to a semi thing, but I knew ultimately they could stop the picture, and they should be able to stop the picture. It's their property, their money. But we made it so that, well, if we had a script that did this and we had a budget that did that, then it really, I was narrowing out the elements that they could say no to. And finally, I agreed to do it. When I came on, there was one director, and then he left, and another director.
Who was the director when you started?
Brett Ratner.
Right.
He was on for about a week while I was on, and then I walked in one day and I said, "Where's Brett? I want to talk to him." And they say he's not here, and I go, "Oh, okay. Well, when he gets in, have him come into my office." And they said, "No, he's not coming back." And I went, "Where'd he go?" I knew nothing. So then that, and I thought, okay, that's the end of that. I'm leaving. And then they said, no, we got somebody else. And then it was McGee. And McGee and I worked a year on the project. And then one day he said to me, I can't get on a plane. It was always going to be in Australia. He goes, I can't get on a plane. I go, what do you mean you can't get on a plane? Anyway, we went through that. That's a whole other story. I don't want to impose on Brandon's time.
You auditioned for McGee at first.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes. The road to get to that audition is a very interesting story, but I could spend a long time talking about that.
It's up to you. If you want to tell it, tell it. We'll go there with you.
Okay. My path to be in the position that we are in right now, speaking about this thing in my life, is just fascinating to me as I've gone back and looked at the connections and the steps and all of the things, and because I'm very curious about how I am where I am often. And
here.
And so fast forward to my college experience and going to IMTA, meeting my first manager at this, big cattle call, like thousands of people there. Oh, like 2% of them are actually going to get signed with somebody and become, do anything with it. 5.5% actually make any money at be me.
You were one of them.
I was one of them, and there are a couple other people, people still working. My first manager, my first meeting was with a gentleman, a lovely gentleman, Jeff Maroney, and he had a management company with Beverly Strong, and said I was at a meeting with him, and he was like, "Oh, so I think you got a great look, and you're a little green." And I was like, "Well, huh?" And then I found out what that meant. But you got a good look, and has anybody ever told you that you look like Christopher Reeve? And I was like, no. Well, you do, and I'm a big fan. And if there's ever a Superman movie or film, we're definitely going to get you in on that, because you'd probably have a good shot at that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And that was the first time I've ever had that I recall anybody mentioning that to me. So then fast forward to 2000.
What was all right? So, but someone says this thing to you, and you know what this franchise is. You know what that is. You had seen Christopher Reeve's work in Superman. Does this connect in any way in your head? Is this beyond fantastical? Does any part of you go, you know what?
Well, it does, because I'm from Iowa, because I am rather like Clark Kent, and have been, certainly was at that time in my life more even. It all made sense, and it's comedy, and I loved that movie, and I had fond memories of watching that movie, but also throwing up because I was so excited from jumping around and swimming before it came on TV that I gave myself a migraine headache or whatever. I had a migraine headache. Who knows if I gave it to whatever. I had a migraine headache and was throwing up. laying on the couch with a metal bowl below me, like, throwing up through most of the movie. And that was my first Superman experience. But I had my pajamas. My mom still has my Superman pajamas, a little cape. That's my first Superman memory and experience.
It touched you.
I don't know. I mean, yes, obviously it did, but I don't know the thoughts leading up to a 5-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid being excited to watch Superman. I remember literally jumping on. My brain says a couple jumps on the couch and then stick and throwing up.
Yeah.
But
good enough. So you weren't up to the wire work at that point.
No, not yet. I also had a dream, probably around the same age. I don't know, from 6 to 8. It feels like age 6 to 9. I don't know. I had a dream that I was flying in a big metropolitan city. I was flying as a kid. I was, whatever age I was at the time, flying, and like this, and around me, also flying, were koalas that were wearing capes. And the movie was filmed in Australia.
Wow.
What is that? What is that? I have no idea. So putting a couple of those factors into, and my general naivete and glass half full attitude, went out to Los Angeles thinking, yeah, sure, it might happen. It could be Superman someday. Why not? Who better than I?
And Bryan Singer gets the gig. He comes aboard as the director of Superman Returns, and he had seen your audition for McG. Yes. So, and that whole thing, which I will tell much more concisely, I can't. That's a whole other podcast about this whole weirdness. I was working at Lucky Strike as a bartender. I just gotten a job there, and I dressed up for a Halloween costume because I needed to make money because I was working Halloween night, and there was like $100 prize, $100 prize for the employee that dressed. And this Superman thing had kind of built for me a little bit, like it'd been like a. And so I dressed up as the picture that's kind of a famous picture, or was back in the day, of me, a Superman shirt with a suit over it, and I put a little wire in my tire and made it go back this way, and I got glasses, Clark, and I was Clark turning into Superman. Yeah.
And I won the $100. It was huge. And my friend Terrence took a picture, or had a picture taken, and then he put it on his like Facebook or MySpace or whatever, Friendster or whatever it was back in the day. And that's a picture that people took and used. That was October of 2003. Prior to that meeting, I ended up at a birthday party with a woman who was the assistant to J.J. Abrams. Okay, I didn't know this at the time. I'm having a conversation with her. She's like, "Oh, Daniel, you look a lot like Superman. Has anybody ever told you that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, my manager." And I was, "Oh well, my boss is writing the next Superman movie." And I was like, "Oh really?" It's like, "Yeah, and you'd be great for it." I was like, "Really?" Well, no, I thought they were doing the Nick Cage thing. Like, I'm too old for that. She's like, no, they're doing a whole nother thing. He's younger and all this stuff. And I go, "Oh wow," my brain is just like on fire. I'm just like, if you're giving me your headshot, maybe I can give it to him. My boss, he's just the writer. He doesn't, I don't have any power necessarily, but maybe he can get it to the producer, John Peters. It's like, okay. So the next day or 2 days later, I drive into ABC. I hadn't really been there much before. Driving on a lot, she got me a pass, and I walk into the Alias offices, and I find her, and I give her my headshot, and okay, thanks. And then I was like, "Oh, this is crazy," and I leave. And I said, "Well, who knows what that is?" I have a memory that John actually came to Lucky Strike, but now I don't know if that's real. I have a dream that John came with himself and an assistant. John Peters, the producer of the movie. At some point, yeah. At some point, I don't know when. I don't know if that's. I remember. Anyway, so that was October. I don't think anything happened in there. Then January comes around, pilot season, busy. Like an audition for this show for CW called The Mountain. On it, I see that Mick G is a producer. Mick G is directing Superman Returns or Flyby at the time. And I go, oh, huh. I bet if I get a call back, he'll see me in the callback, and he'd be like, "You should be Superman." So I worked really hard on the audition. It was for a character with edgy guy, like a cocky guy. I don't do that well, especially then. No edge, not didn't know how to do that. I had a fine audition though, and they brought me back for a callback. I'm like, he might be there. He might be there. He wasn't there. But who? But
so close, so far.
But his producing partner, Stephanie Savage, was there. So I didn't know who Stephanie was, but we're talking, and then casting director stepped out of the room for a little bit, and we're talking, and she's getting a coffee, and she went to University of Iowa, and she was also an ice skater or something. We talked about ice skating. We're bonding about University of Iowa, and I'm just kind of gently charming, but I'm not saying anything about Superman, but I'm just showing all these qualities, I think, in my, who else? I was 23, 4, I don't know, out of my mind. And then I left. And my manager calls me a week later, and he's like, I had some good news and bad news. And I was like, what do you want first? And I was like, I guess the bad news. She's like, well, you might want to pull over. I was like, okay, well, the bad news is that you didn't get the job. And I was bummed because they thought maybe they could write a different part for me because I just wouldn't fit the mold of the character I needed. But they didn't work out, and I needed a job. But the good news is they want, Mick G wants to meet with you. They're setting up a meeting for you to meet with Mick G. So I literally created my own meeting. I mean, I did. Would I have seen him otherwise? I don't know. Through the natural casting process, possibly, but with very different energy. I would have been coming in. So then I had a meeting with him about 30 minutes. We talked nothing about Superman. I left. I'd met John there. I think he was in the office. I might have met you too, Gil, but I didn't know your name, and right. I knew John because the assistant had talked about John. And then I later came back and read with the casting directors, and then read a callback with McGee, and then the screen test, and that's where I met Gil at the screen test, and then I didn't get the job, and nobody got the job, and then I was destroyed, and my life went, no, I was like, oh, man. I was this close to the sun, and I burned up before I got there. And then Friday, the 13th of August 2004 rolled around, and everything changed.
Bryan Singer, he had insisted on an unknown actor in the tradition of the way they cast Christopher Reeve. He said that you were the embodiment of our collective memory of Superman. And he especially liked your humble Midwestern roots. So yeah, all that stuff absolutely worked for you.
Big statement, isn't it?
Interestingly, where you grew up was about 100 miles away from the hometown of the original TV Superman.
Yes.
Did we forget to mention that's also
we didn't meet. I mentioned George Reeve.
Yeah, George Reeve grew up in
Wilcott.
Yeah. There's all kinds of strange Superman stuff around you. It's really freaky. Finally, you get the gig.
Yes, I was in Gil's office when I finally got the official word. Yeah.
You're going to be doing this in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you shot this in Australia for, what was it, 9 months?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I used to say.
Very long time.
Now, when Gil and I shot the last season of Crypt, we moved to London for 6 months. And it was great in ways. It was frustrating and maddening in other ways. Adjusting to the culture. Well, we're both married to Brits, so it was a little bit easier where that was concerned.
Interesting.
But there's still to go and move someplace far, far away for a length of time.
Yeah.
Yes, there's your work day, but there's also, okay, now it's quitting time. Now what are you going to do? What was the experience like working in Australia? Because had you traveled outside the country before that?
That was my first. Wait,
Right.
first international travel? Was that my first international? I think that was my first international travel. I lived in New York. I was on a soap opera and lived in New York, so I'd been.
That's kind of international in a way.
I mean, it's thankfully I went to New York before I went to LA. Actually, ever. But I know, I think that was my first international. I think I had to get my passport for that.
Yeah. So right off the bat, this is man, it's a brave new world. It is stranger and it was
amazing. It was amazing.
Land.
I loved it. It was just. I'm so happy that we were in Australia because it would have been a different story for me if we were in Los Angeles.
In Sydney, isn't that where you shot most of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never been there. What's Sydney like?
The sun is different,
How so?
I definitely sense differences in the sun and the sky and angle of light and light quality.
Totally right. I mean, one of the reasons why we decided to go to Australia way back, because of that, because of the light. It's a very different light down there. It seems like it's more intense. It seems more pure, and it seems more clear.
The image is like bigger.
Yeah,
is expansive. We were in Sydney, which is on the coast, and maybe also because there's not a lot of. I mean, there's a downtown area, but it's a smaller footprint of height of buildings, and so there's more sky there in a lot of places, I guess, and it's just more alive, and it's alive in a different way. I don't know. Listen, I also have fond memories. When you think about places, that you go back to, we had such a great time, and I don't know if going back it'd be exactly the same experience. Also, it was peak time in my life. So much energy around that experience that it was incredibly stressful, but I was also very alive. That doesn't mean I was very present, but I was very alive in that time in like a different way. I absolutely loved it, and the people were great, and the food was amazing, and definitely ate too much of that. But
what particular foods surprised you?
This whole funny, silly thing about coffee. I almost had most silly. I was like getting a coffee was almost my kryptonite the first couple of weeks in Australia. Literally, almost brought me to my knees because I felt like such a stupid American now looking back. But this was 2004, and we went over there, and I hadn't drank. I was 20. I was 24. I'd started to drink coffee, but I wasn't an avid coffee drinker. I just get a coffee, And so I go in and say, "Can I have a coffee, please?" And I show white. What? I just want a coffee. Okay, but what? It's like, no, just coffee. But what kind of? But do you want like a purple coffee, or do you want like a cube coffee? And I'm like, I just want coffee. But they're saying like, what, cheese coffee or like Empire State Building coffee? Like, just coffee, drip coffee. And I don't know how many things I went into just being frustrated because in that mode and that time I was just like frustrated and I didn't know how to figure out the answers. I didn't know how to like calm myself and go, wait, there's got to be a solution. I was like, why is the world crazy? Why am I the right one? And the world is crazy. And now I realized, oh, maybe I could just ask somebody calmly, like, oh, it's so interesting. I keep asking for this thing. It's like this thing. Finally, I did that to a friend or enough people. I don't know who it was. Because I was there with my cousin Kevin, and he didn't drink a lot of coffee either, so he was no help. He drank tea. And so anyway, finally I figured it out. It's an Americano. And I was like, oh, there's a language, there's a word for it. It's an Americano. And then I was no longer defeated by coffee in Australia.
You're right, though. It's a whole other world in terms of coffee down there. They've got the best coffee in the world, I think, but you have to know what you're asking.
What
for, you know,
what is it? What is a short or what? What are they doing to it?
Cappuccino latte. It's like how much foam? It's like long white, how much white, short white
Yeah.
milk. That's the milk, and like it's just
a
different.
flat white or a long black.
Oh, there you go. Flat white, long.
I'm with you, Brandon. Just give me a goddamn coffee, please. Got all the fucking frou-frou.
I had a similar problem with coffee, the coffee culture, when I first went down there to look at locations for a movie before I made Superman. I made a movie called Ghost Ship, and I went down there and they said to me, if you want just a black coffee, ask for a long black. So I'm alone. All the people that I was working with, and I was flying back to the States the next day. And so I had dinner myself. I go into this restaurant and he said, after dinner, you want something to drink? And I said, yeah, figuring I would be really smart and sharp and let him know I knew the culture. I said, I would like a tall black.
Yeah.
And the waiter came over to me and he said, I bet you would, but this isn't the place for that. I can get, and I realized, whoops,
no,
I wasn't asking for a coffee.
Yikes. Production was production.
No problems. It was flawless, Gil, wasn't it? It was like the most cleanly run, no stress in the whole production. End of story. There's really not. We shouldn't. I mean, with the interview's over. I think
Well, there you go. It was a one of a kind movie.
Wrap it up.
What was the worst problem you faced making it while you were making it, Gil?
Let's see. I don't think the podcast is long enough for me to go into it. We had a lot of problems.
It's a great looking movie.
Yeah, it was shot really well. Everything about the movie itself, I think, came out well and came out good. I'm very proud of that movie. I think everything about it, I really like a lot. It was just a very difficult and very challenging experience to make the picture. I mean, consider we had 5 different units shooting at any given time. And, so I was constantly trying to figure out, okay, when do we get Brandon onto this set, or when do we get Brandon onto that set? And always talking to the ADs about, the most efficient way of using not only his time, but our time and our money. So it was a big production. It was a huge production.
What was the most challenging scene to create? Because the opening on the airplane that's a great sequence.
Yeah, I mean, that took a long time. We spent probably
do it twice,
months.
kind of.
Yeah, and
Some
we did
parts of
6
it.
months in previs. We previs the hell out of it. We built in Tamworth, which is an 1.5-hour flight away from Sydney. We built the farm and we grew the corn, and we decided to shoot the corn when the corn was the right height. I mean, it was just very, very challenging. We built the Daily Planet on a stage, and we overlit it, which caused terrible problems because of heat, which gave us more problems because I had to get more air conditioning, which caused more problems because we didn't have the electrical capability for the additional air conditioning. So
I couldn't just turn down the lights?
No.
How do you? Oh, what a weird thing.
No.
They could only be set to 11.
So we had, I mean, problem after problem after problem, which you don't even think about or realize until you start talking about it and going, oh, wait a second, that was a problem. This wasn't, this was an issue. This wasn't. So yeah, there were a lot of problems with it.
Had to keep pulling me out of the bars, and keep all my bar fights under wraps, and
Having cast a lot of actors, I can tell you, I've never cast an actor to act. You just want actors to be who they are as honestly as they possibly can. And really and truly, that you got cast in Superman as Superman was perfect casting. Really, you were it, even in the way that you grew up. there was a lot of that. And as I think we've discovered, there's a lot of that internal conflict. The Clark and Superman have a conflict, and you're incredibly you're a terrific storyteller, and yet you insist you aren't. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, I have my moments. Thank you. It's you have to be invested in the story. Sometimes if you're not, then it falls apart. I haven't always been able to. Thank you.
When you got to the end of this whole process of Superman Returns, and I'll a small confession, I didn't see the movie until very, very recently, just before we did this interview, because because at the time,
no, it's amazing. That's great. I love it.
Well, at the time it came out, I was not I was watching certain movies.
Yeah.
But now that I've seen it, I'm so impressed with everybody's work. It's a little too long, but I think everybody knows that. I'm not giving away any family secrets. I don't think, but it really, the mission was to take it back to Dick and Christopher, and you did. It's remarkably how faithful it was to the stated purpose.
Yeah. Well, thanks, and it's a supreme credit to Gil for championing parenting this, and being the parent for thousands of people. Really keeping everybody in line. You're phenomenal, Gil, at what you do, and it's not just logic and logistics and this, and I know how to do this. It's the way you are with people, and it means so much in this business, in life, and I just want to honor you in that way. You certainly made the difference for me. It would have been a very, very, very big difference. I mean, if somebody didn't have you in my corner, helping to protect me and to make sure that I was as safe as I could be, from just the pressure of this thing, which I was so naive. I really had no concept of, I guess.
Yeah.
To the benefit of me, I guess, in a way, so that my fear didn't engage. But
you had become instantly famous.
Yeah, ish. Yeah, I guess so.
Well, yeah, I mean, you went from nobody knowing your
yes,
name.
I mean, yes,
everybody knowing your name, and that's, most people do not have that experience ever.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, it's indescribable. People who have gone through it, nothing can prepare you for it. Nothing, and everyone's is slightly, individual. And so, nothing can prepare you for the whole world looking at you so differently.
I mean, I don't know. Can't. I mean, it can't. But I never really thought about it before. But I feel like once I made the decision to go to Los Angeles and pursue this, that I guess kind of like success was inevitable. And that's not even like egotistical, because it wasn't, I thought I was so good. It was more holistic.
It just wasn't a question.
It was just, this is I guess maybe that people talk about path or flow. It was just yes. And I didn't have the understanding, or couldn't tell you why, or even if it didn't make sense. It was just yes. It was the thing to do. It made the most logical sense and felt right.
Understood. Absolutely understood.
Yeah.
All right. So now the movie gets released, and just in the moments pre-release, you have a 3-picture deal. This is the first, and you are assuming, Brandon, that your future Your future, you are on a flight path to God knows
Yes,
where.
this is great. This is yes, please. This is my
Oh,
world. Yes, continue.
Yeah. I mean, and suddenly it just
I got it all. It's like, well, this is amazing.
yeah, and suddenly something changes, something that you have no control over. It's out of your hands. You've done everything you possibly can. People in suits are making decisions that are changing your destiny, motherfuckers. Even though the movie did great, it made money. What more do you want?
It was well reviewed, and it was well reviewed.
Yes, yeah. Empire ranked the movie 496 on the 500 greatest movies of all time.
Yeah,
it's.
I think our Rotten Tomatoes is better than a lot of the other related stuff too.
So
I think we were punished for success and because of the emotionality that we gave that character. I think that's what they sort of resented. Some people resented that emotionality.
You mean the movie-going audience?
No,
Or
I think the people
powers that be.
Yeah, the powers that be. I think ultimately.
That's interesting. Yeah, I have a thought too.
Yeah.
Would you say that this was a case of Superman, the emotional approach to the character being a little bit ahead of the curve? Because really, that's where a lot of superheroes ultimately end up. Hey, Peter Parker is an emotional wreck. That's the point.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, we brought in more humanity. That was what was so beautiful about Chris's performance is the humanity in his Clark and in his Superman. Like he was all of those characters.
I would use the word vulnerable, and I'd use the word to describe how you played him, and which is it's totally the strange human connection to a superhero.
Yeah, he's still human. He's like. I mean, I see this. If my chemical, I could reverse the magnetic field of my body and use magnetism to float. Because it's all gravity's magnet. If you can reverse the magnetism, they're making flying cars and stuff. We're electron. What's I did? Then then you have a lot of power, right? So what does a person like that do with that power? Are you going to be a complete asshole and rule the world, or are you going to be a benevolent person who wants to see the kindness and beauty in humanity and share that message? And that's what I've wanted to do all my life. Just that the idea of how that would be is grown and gets bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. I'm suddenly on a stage where I have that opportunity to kind of do that,
and suddenly the vehicle you're
crumbling down.
Yeah, it's like you had a custom-made vehicle, and yet you were made for each other. It was quite. And then, like I said, guys in suits suddenly made a decision that they made money, but not enough money.
Sometimes they're not ready.
What made it special, and what made Brandon's performance so special for me was, the passion. I mean, we all had passion about making this movie, from Brian, me, to even John Peters to a degree, but the passion that Brandon brought to the character, to me, made the biggest difference. And that's why, in my mind, it was the best Superman movie that I'd ever seen and have seen since.
And you really believed a man could fly in this one?
Well, he can.
Yeah. In many in so many ways. Suddenly you veer. Well, Superman gets derailed. And that had to be just.
He has his junkyard moment.
I can only imagine the wow. It's beyond unsettling. How what was that? I don't want to take you back to that moment because it had to be horrible, but that there's a mountain now you have to get past. The fact that this thing that should have been wasn't.
Yeah.
How did you put yourself back together again? Because you did.
I want to. I mean, it was friends and family were very important, helpful. Gil and Jeannie being there, and awkward position for him to be in because technically he's producer and he's my boss, but I'm also living in his guest house and Jeannie's guest house, and not even paying full rent because I have been not working really because the movie didn't happen and other things aren't quite happening, and it's a very stressful and terrible time. So grateful for you guys for all of that, Courtney and I both. And my parents are incredibly supportive and positive, and that things will come around, and really my wife Courtney incredibly important in the whole process, really. But in supporting and helping and protecting and looking out for me for things that I didn't know and dangers I didn't see because I was this little farm boy from Iowa. So that was incredibly important.
You
Courtney,
got back.
Courtney was a great support. My perspective, she was and is and has been always. And what we all do, we all trip and fall along the way, and we pick ourselves up, and we move on to the next, and or we leave. I mean, a lot of people have left, and it takes fortitude and perseverance, like tell people want to be in the film business to continue on.
What Gil and I have said on this podcast quite a few times, it's the thing that most outsiders don't appreciate about this business. It's a bitch getting onto the mountain, but that ain't the real bitch. The bitch is staying on the mountain. That's the thing that will fuck you up, because you gotta, it's what have you done for me lately?
I mean, I think there's truth to that. I think I didn't know it. I didn't know anything, and I really didn't. I had become an instant celebrity or notoriety, a famous person at that time. I was able to, I think, play what was required of me, the roles in Superman Returns effectively, and there are scenes I would like to do differently and take back and burn, but otherwise I love about that movie. And what I was able to do as a 25-year-old in that movie. But I had so much. I had missed so much. I had missed so many acting steps, and also like life steps to get to where I was. So I was bewildered when I got there, and the path was gone.
Yeah.
The path was no longer clear, and I had to start to make my own path again, because I explained to you what happened. The story. The path was kind of like, oh this, oh that, oh. It's like, door. The question was, am I afraid to go through the door or not? Like, it was like, no. I mean, but then you get to the top, right? And I'm like, oh, just to peek at the thing, right? And you go through the door, and then like, there was good, there's great, fantastic, amazing, but there's also like the other side of it. And I hadn't experienced it to that depth, and I think that was really challenging for me because then it was like, where are the doors?
Yeah, the other side of the door is where you begin to learn shit.
Mm-hmm.
About you, about life.
A path. You have to begin to choose your own adventure. And before, I wasn't really. I was unconsciously choosing my own adventure, and now I am shifting into choosing my own adventure.
It's hard to have that to bounce, but you did, and you began to work. You did an episode of Fear Itself, working with our friend Mick Garris.
Well, I was really with Mary Harron, the director, but yes, I was on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but it was still
Yeah,
it was a Mick
yes,
enterprise, and
which is very. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, it's always nice to see the family supporting the family.
Yeah, sure. It's funny, and it's very fun. That's great, and it's also another parallel because of Chris doing Tales from the Crypt, which I, you know, because it's a genre. I mean, similar kind of genre type thing, and that's probably the worst performance I've ever given in my life. By the way,
And Fear itself.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't seen it.
It's just bad. I mean, there's maybe some like, but a lot of it's just bad. That was a rough one.
But the good news was, there was work. There was suddenly you had to figure out how to be an actor again to a degree, because if you had been Superman, you wouldn't have had to have. All right, I don't mean you wouldn't have had to have acted, but all your acting choices would have been made for you. In a certain degree, it would have been whatever the character was going to do. You would have navigated within the range. You would not have been playing characters outside of Superman. You would have been playing.
Oh, right. Yeah. I would have just continued on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? I just know that.
Indeed.
I wasn't,
Now you had to go and really take who you are and put that into a range of characters with different names.
Yes.
And yet, strangely, then there was more superheroes came your way, and there's the Flash.
Yeah. Well, before comic books came. We did Dylan Dog.
Dylan Dog, and
which happened almost simultaneous to Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I played a villain. So villain.
Yeah. So the opportunities suddenly were coming for you to do really some really interesting stuff, and that wouldn't have been there probably if you had done 2 more movies of Superman. You would have been typecast. Forget about it. Oh man.
Probably.
I don't know.
Possibly, but I was okay with that. That's like, okay, so, and let's do this amazing thing. I'm not going to worry about that shit because that might not happen. Also, maybe I won't.
Yeah, but that was one of the problems Chris had. I mean, he, when we got to work with him,
George, I suppose,
we talked a little bit about this, and he really felt that Superman was great for his career in one level and terrible for his career in another, because he didn't get to play different parts that he really wanted to play. So it's really a mixed blessing, but it's, it goes back to the fortitude and the perseverance of what do I want to do?
Yeah. Well, listen, thankfully I like this character, and this is the kind of characters I want to play anyway. So for me, it was I'd be typecast as a dorky dude, nerdy guy. I was that's my jam. That's where I find fun, to be the awkward, aloof, just fish out of water. That was my first role ever in acting. The play is Aesop. In high school, my first was a fumbling idiot, but lovable, and that's my favorite thing to play.
Ray Palmer.
Ray and Clark are not idiots.
No. But
anybody at home keeping track of
but Ray, Ray Palmer came along. That's a cool part.
Yeah, it turned into a fantastic thing.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's you created other opportunities for yourself based on your body of work. Really, like I said, if you had perversely, if you had continued just to do the Superman thing, other opportunities would have been denied you. Most likely because this town is so fucked up in a way that it pigeonholes all of us.
Well, I think the trajectory, I think if we look, I guess just in this conversation I'm seeing, if we look holistically at the team behind that movie, projecting forward several years, and I think that it may be the best thing for the the legacy of Superman, that that it didn't continue down that path with that team.
Totally true. I couldn't
And I
agree.
think I'm just kind of realizing that in this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I had to be the one, whatever, I can make it whatever I wanted to in my head, but that's an honorable takeaway and an understanding of the situation. Because I have been able to continue. It's taken some time for me to wrap my head around it, but I have been able to continue in a more positive, active role. My sharing of the message of Superman.
When you got to put the uniform, the Superman wardrobe back on, you've described it in we talked about the earlier interviews you did with Michael Rosenbaum.
Mm-hmm.
You described the process of putting the wardrobe back on and what that was like, and it had to be quite gratifying.
It was surreal, but not as surreal as the first time. I was actually more present. Thankfully, it was such a beautiful.
The second
time, father. I've been a father.
Yeah.
15 years later, a lot of wisdom. I think it's wisdom and growth, and so I really felt like I could bring something different and a depth to Superman specifically. Yeah. That I was not able to tap into or understand or even be aware of at the time. And so I was very eager to be able to do that. And so this was an opportunity to really do that, and then also the feeling of being honored and respected, to be back in that way was just tremendous. And it closed the door on that for me. Like I used to have lingering, like, oh, what if, and I don't anymore. I still have like, what if, but it's not. It's like, oh, maybe, but it's not. It's such a gift. I'm so grateful. It's one of the, the whole thing.
As you said at the start, you kind of headed out with this thing in your head that you were going to get from point A to point B, and even when it was derailed, you still ended up back there, and coming back to, I would imagine, coming back to such a particular role, having been away for an important period of time where a lot of development, were really just your evolution as a human being here on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine, the depth when you went back to the character, and God, suddenly I have to imagine you saw it with greater depth.
Oh, yes. I mean, I have continued to. He's ever present. The ideas, the theme, the energy of Superman has lived with me always, but it just became like, oh, this is also Superman energy. When this actual role came around, it's like, oh, this is the same thing. This is just this face. It's this telling the story this way. I'm just telling the story this way. This is the puppet I'm using. This is the character. This is the message. This is and so going into to conventions and at first was weird for me because people are paying money to say hi to me and take my picture and my photo, and do I feel weird about that? And yes, I do, but also like they would never meet me if I wouldn't leave my family to go do that if I wasn't getting paid. Not that I don't love people, but I would be with my family. It's an incentive, and is that wrong? And I'm like, the point is I'm here, and if I'm here, and I just go to I'm here. If I'm here with the people, I'll connect with you as much as I can in this moment. So I've been working on being able to connect with people in small instances to say, I see you, I appreciate you. You have this wonderful thing in memory of Superman and the energy that I helped evoke or bring about or stay resonant in your life, and that's awesome and wonderful to meet you. And so the way I interact with people is shifting currently, even and it's really exciting and fun. So that's just other Superman, and then talking and thinking about it.
It sounds like you have gained over the course of time. You have gained grace. for want of a better word, that you have become.
Yes, I'm learning grace.
Yes,
Learning grace.
yeah. A wonderful quality to acquire as life goes on.
So it's a great space to be in. It's when I'm able to tap into it and remember that it's available all the time. That's great. That's a great definition or explanation.
What are you working on right now?
We started in June, and we were 6 months into our shooting and stopped by the strike. Thankfully, we were independent and signed the waiver agreement right away, and we were down for 2 or 3 days, and then got back and we finished the film, principal photography of a movie that I don't think I'm supposed to talk about it really yet, because it's going to be a surprise thing. But it's really fun, and it's a genre. It's a horror comedy action, fun, but kind of family-ish. It's PG-13.
So you will be allowed to see it.
It's going to be scary.
But it's PG-13. But you will be allowed to see it now.
I mean, yes, I will now. Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You won't have to hide under the covers.
Right. Oh, God. Not so much. But it was so fun and amazing, and another fantastic.
When is it supposed to be out?
We don't know. We're still
yeah.
Lots to do, but it's the first thing I've been excited about in a very long time.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great to hear. I came into this not knowing that much about you, but I've learned a lot about you in a very short amount of time. And like I said, I feel like our experience in this business is so similar. Good God, we could weep on each other's shoulders.
Yeah, I've just been talking the whole time. I've been
but that was the invitation, wasn't it? Hey, if this is our couch, you lie down on, not us. My biggest takeaway is that Brandon, you are super, man. That's it. That's my takeaway.
And he always has been.
And I thank you. We both thank you so much for opening your opening your heart and telling a very hard story. It really is, man. It's hard to tell a story about being disappointed.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a journey the last bit of time to get in touch with my vulnerability and the authenticity, and to be as truthful representation of who I am inside, to have that represented outside. And it takes a lot of effort and energy and focus, and also relaxation. Composed relaxation, people have better explanations for it, but focused awareness, focused attention. No, that's focused awareness. Focused distraction. I don't know. Now I'm getting distracted by my brain, but
no worries.
Sorry, I'm going to bring that back to a cohesive thought.
Take your moment, find your light.
Yeah. I actually just went off.
No worries.
Now I said too many words, and I did a. What were we talking about?
Oh my God, you just described my brain. Oh my God, I'm hypomanic, so that happens a lot, man. Just a great idea, and suddenly I'm at the end of a pier with nowhere else to go.
If I do too much self-analyzation about why I'm saying the thing I'm doing, then I get lost. I'm lost in that rabbit hole, and I forgot. Like, wait, nobody needs to hear that, Brandon. Go back to the fish. You're reeling at a fish in the story, and what is the fish?
This is why I smoke.
Courtney's great thing that she says, and now I imagine it when I'm telling a story. What's the fish? Go back to the fish. What are you pulling in? I don't even remember what I was saying. What were we talking about?
This is why I smoke copious amounts of marijuana.
We were just thanking you for.
Yeah, we were just thanking you for being incredibly.
Vulnerability. We're talking about vulnerability.
Open.
I was so open. I lost my train of thought. Vulnerability is important in the world, and I'm grateful to like you mentioned Michael a couple of times. Michael's show getting people to talk. That was one of the first opportunities I had to kind of speak, have a safe space to talk about the journey I was going through in therapy and how important it is, and mental health and all of these things. I mean, gosh, guys, let's just we gotta love each other, and we gotta support each other, and we gotta know that nobody's perfect, and we're all making mistakes, and we just want to. I just want to make movies and have fun and celebrate, and we don't have to do all this. We don't have to do all this other stuff that we're doing. We don't have to. There's a system that was set up long before we got here, we're trying to fix other people's mistakes and then tie the knots. And who's to blame? Who's blame? You got the blame. This is your blame, but you did this and you did that. Okay, you can't. You can't unravel. You can't go back and start. You can't go back to the beginning and do it again.
No.
So what now? What do you want? To live and to be happy? What do you want? To live and be happy? Okay, how do we do that?
This is our mission.
So anyway, that's the world. That's world peace right there.
It seems so simple. How can we not solve this? It's a whole other podcast, I think. Thank you, everybody.
I'm being facetious, everyone, in case anybody thinks I'm slight. I'm like 1%, but I'm a little bit of mostly facetious. It's not that easy. It is, but it isn't. I don't water down the terrors and the traumas that are happening all across the world. Sorry for everyone. I'm suffering, and I love all of you. So take care wherever you are.
Indeed. Be safe, everyone. Above all, be safe. And thank you for listening. The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jodie Webster, and Jason Jodie, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast.